All right, so we're recording. Thank you so much for coming today and doing this podcast with us. First one of FMS. You're our very first guest. We couldn't start better. Thank you so much for being in the podcast.
It's my pleasure to be here with you guys.
Thank you so much.
So basically, we're gonna ask you a series of questions related to finance and how youngsters as we are should manage our money as we're young and we
The little money you have, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So before we start with the questions, we would like to know a bit about Goiko's history because I'm sure there's a lot of details you can tell us about that.
Exactly. I mean, you guys know Goiko, but Goiko was born 11 years ago only, 2013. It was founded by a Venezuelan doctor that really had passion for burgers, right? And the secret sauce of Goiko was, first of all, it almost created a category that didn't exist before. Before, if you wanted to eat a burger, you just had to go to McDonald's, Burger King, but there was almost nothing else there. But he created unique burgers that were amazing, nothing like people had tried before. And he combined that with an amazing marketing. He was the first one to actually use Instagram as a media channel, let's say, like with the food porn and everything that no one had done before. And he reached like levels, like it was like best in class in the entire Europe in terms of the amount of people that he had in terms of followers, engagement and everything. So when you combine those two things, boom, it exploded. And it's a company that went from 0 to almost 130 that we're going to have at the end of the year in just 11 years, right? The company was acquired by the private equity in 2018. And it kept growing and growing very fast. COVID hit us the same way that it hit everyone. And in the last 4 years, as everyone in the sector, we've been like having a lot of fun, right? With the COVID, the inflation, the problems with supply chain, you name it, right? So we're having lots of fun, as we said. But Goiko is a brand that has huge strength, and we have like amazing growth plans for the next 5 years where we want to conquer the globe. So that's Goiko in a nutshell.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, really good history. Everyone knows Goiko.
I hope.
Yeah.
Whoever doesn't know, should come, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much. And first question, when it comes to your youth, when you already started with your financial education and your financial actions, what were like some errors or maybe mistakes you think you committed that you really learned from them? And overall, how do you really manage your financial resources?
Okay, first of all, to set the context, when I was your age, there was no internet at home, okay? So you guys need to picture that, right? So there was no such a thing as financial education when I was 16, 17, or 18, no? What I remember is when I was 18 was the first time that I had contact with, let's call it business. And we had a class, I remember, when I was in Co, where we had to make like, basically, we had to simulate that we were buying shares, right? There wasn't such a thing as internet, so we had to buy every 2 days a newspaper to see how the shares we were buying were going, right? And I remember that was the time of the .com boom. I don't know if you heard about it. It was the boom and the down, right? And I remember like buying shares of Terra and all of that. Where there was this thing that says that Telefonica, someone had to choose between buying Terra and Google, and you know what they bought, right? So it was that moment. It was amazing, right? It was the first time that I felt like, okay, these are shares, but they started to explain to you like, you can earn money with shares in terms of you can buy shares that have more risk, where you're going to earn money, by the price of the shares. You can buy shares where you're going to earn money with the dividend, the more traditional ones like Telefonica, Ciberdrolas, all of that. I had no money back then, right? The thing that I had it was just a fund that my grandpa's opened 15 years ago. It's like they were putting there 100 euros every month, and that was all the money I had, right? In a fund that later on I used to buy a house. But at the end, in terms of my knowledge, it was close to zero, right? I only started investing really myself after I got my first job. And I remember, what do I do with the money? It was not a lot of money, let's say, 1,000 euros, 2,000 euros that you got every month. And what I did, it was 2006. You remember what happened in 2008, right? Lehman Brothers collapsed, right? So that was me investing. So I thought okay, let's not take a lot of risks. I bought, as I said, Telefonica, Ciberdrolas, all of that. because I didn't know what to do, right? Like I wasn't very savvy in terms of what are the options that one has. Then we can talk about the options that one has in terms of you need to understand what are the returns that you get with everything, like buying flats or investing in funds or investing in some types of shares or different types of shares that give you dividend or other types of vehicles, right, to invest. I had no idea. So I invested in shares and I lost almost everything in the in my brother's collapse. So we will go to the lessons that you need to get later on, but that was one of the lessons, right? Diversify, because I think like I had 5,000 euros, I put it all in Iberdrola. It's cannot go down ever. So it went down, right? So it's important that you diversify geographically, risks, everything. And then other learnings, positive, these ones. It was 2017, I was a bit older, let's say 32, 33, 35, I cannot even remember. But you start to talk things with friends, random things like, normally you will talk like, hey, what is that thing called Bitcoin, right? Like, it was 2017, right? Bitcoin wasn't popular yet. No, man, there's this thing that, I'm sure it will one day reach a lot of money. It's like, let me invest 1,000 euros in that Bitcoin, right? It's like pocket money, right? And now that that Bitcoin is worth a lot of money. So in terms of learnings, it's like always be open to things that you hear, here and there. Because there are people that are very risk averse, and you can still be very risk averse, but it's good to understand where are the trends coming up, And it's like a friend right now just told me, have you seen the stock market in Argentina? Like, no, I haven't. Suddenly it has increased a lot, with Milei governing, with Trump winning the elections, his friends of Milei, suddenly the stock market in Argentina is increasing a lot. So you need to be open to those things. It's like, yes, I'm risk averse, but maybe, like 20% of my money should go there. So as a learning, always be open, always talk to people that know, because you will learn a lot, just combining, different experiences. Yeah?
Yeah, that's great to know. Yeah, good advice, be open-minded when it comes to investing and not like blocking yourself from new opportunities, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
Exactly.
Good advice. Yeah.
Always be open, but for that you also need to understand what are the returns you should expect with every investment you do, right? But we're talking about shares. What is the historical return of the stock market? Is 5%? Is 10%? It was 10%, but now if you look at the last years, it's been 5%. So when you invest in the stock market, you should expect 5% or 7%. If you look at the Standard & Poor's, it's way beyond that 5%. If you look at our stock market, it's below that 5% probably. So you need to understand that. You need to understand that if you invest in flats, in houses or everything, like, that's the approach of my parents, right? They love to invest buying flats, houses, they would never sell anything. But that at the end has a return that is 4-5%. That's it, right? And for me, I'm someone who doesn't invest, for example, a lot in that, in real estate. Because I know the return is low and it brings a lot of work with it. Because you need to buy, you need to maintain, you need to deal with, making sure that it's rented the 12 months. So it's a lot of work, right? For a 4-5%, while if you invest in other things, you can aim for a 10%, 12%. So it's very important that you guys understand from the very beginning where to put your money and what is the return that it will have. Of course, the more return you're aiming for, the higher the risk, right? Like investing in real estate has almost zero risk, unless there's a crisis, right? But investing in other things, it has higher risk. So you need to balance your portfolio. You cannot invest everything in high risk because then you might have the problem that I had in 2008. But at the end, it's about balancing that, right? But understanding what are the dynamics. So there's a lot of work to be done there in terms of, for you guys, learning that, talking to people, understanding, and making sure that you know how you split, depending on how much risk you're willing to take, how you split your portfolio.
Thank you. Okay, so a problem that's been arising now is that young people, teenagers mostly, they want to invest, but they don't know how, and so they just end up gambling. So what would be a financial plan that you would suggest for young people like us, teenagers, or even people who just started working and had a job?
I think financial planning is, first of all, let's step back. Financial planning is important because when you guys are young, you don't see the need, but things will come up like very quickly in your life, as soon as you start working. In terms of, in my case, I did an MBA 3 years after I started working. That required a lot of money, right? So if I didn't have the savings, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Same thing, I bought a house when I was 29. So that was just 6 years after I started working. So if I hadn't had that financial planning, I wouldn't have the money to just give the first payment for the house. So you guys need to understand that there will be things that will come very soon after you start working, and you will require cash to do it, right? One exercise that I did with my kids just recently that I think is very interesting is that I sat with them on the sofa, we projected on the TV, and we started to do, okay, let's do the P&L of this house, yeah, the profit and losses of this house. And we started, let's say, okay, what are the costs that Papa and Mama have every month, right? We have to pay for the school, we have to pay for the trips, we need to pay for the nanny, we need to pay for your rugby, we need to pay for your swimming pool, we need to pay for food. And we started to put all of the costs on a monthly basis, and the guys were like, wow, this much? Is this much the cost that we guys are running in this house? Yes, you know, and started to realize what are the fixed costs of a house, which is huge. I mean, I guys encourage you to do the exercise, because you guys will say like, what the hell, we spend so much on a monthly basis. Yes, you do. So we did this exercise, and suddenly my kids said, okay, Papa, I cannot be a rugby player anymore. Like, yeah, you cannot be a rugby player anymore, kid. If you want to have this quality of life, you know, you will have to earn your money, you will have to work hard and get a good salary. And that's the first boom, you know, that this kid did. So it's important that you guys start to see that is, you know, okay, you know, if I want to have a family, I want to buy a house, I want to buy a car, I want to do this, I want to study an MBA, I want to do all of that, I need a lot of money, right? So it's important that you guys understand how much of your salary, once you have a salary, you need to spend to live, you need to spend to have fun, and how much you need to invest/save, right? And that allows you to say, okay, if I have this much of a salary, how much I need to save per year if I want to buy a car, if I want to have enough money to buy a house, and that at the end is the planning you need to do. Then it's like, okay, you know, if I have 1,000 euros per month that I can save or invest, where do I put that money? And that's the exercise that you also need to do, understanding your tolerance to risk, right? Like, you're going to invest 100% in cryptocurrencies? No, you shouldn't, right? That's not like you shouldn't. So you have to invest some. I mean, I'm not going to say that you need to invest in state bonds, because that's, you know, probably not for someone your age. You need to understand, like, you want to invest something in the American stock market, a little bit in the Spanish stock market, a little bit in real estate, and a little bit in gambling, right? Like maybe a 20%, 25%. Gambling, understand, right? Like, it's just things that have higher volatility.
Yeah,
that,
you don't really know about.
Exactly, but you guys need to understand what it is that you want to invest and have like that balanced portfolio. That at the end, no one is going to become rich investing in bonds, right? Like a 2% per year. You're not going to be. And the target is not to become rich just by investing, you know, all of the money in cryptocurrencies. But it's a little of a balance. You cannot have a target of a 2% on an annual basis. You need to have like a higher target, 5, 6, 7%, 10%. How do I invest my money to get the 10%? So that, you know, in 5 years, I made a 50% return on that. That should be the target. But for that, you need to understand exactly where are those places where you can get that 10%. Yeah?
What proportion of money do you think you should spend, after all needs are covered, you should spend it investing, more or less?
I mean, the theory says that you need to spend 1/3 into the cost of living, you know, your house, food, etc., etc. 1/3 or a bit less in having fun, you know, like your trips, your going out for dinner, etc., etc. And always keep at least 1/3 to save and to invest, right? Because that's the minimum that I would say you need to invest. Otherwise, you're going to be 30 and say, like, where's the money? Where are my savings? Like, well, we haven't saved anything. So it's important you guys are very diligent and start doing that.
Yeah, I really think our viewers are going to appreciate the fact that now they know how to financial plan, because I myself didn't know about this 1/3 rule, and it's true that having 1/3, now I think about it, having 1/3 like maybe emergency like spends or just investing, I think it's also really great. Yeah.
No, and I mean, I said 1/3, assuming average. But one of actually the first thing that they told me in my first job, the first day, is it was consulting, right? I worked for BCG, and they told us your salary is going to increase on an annual basis this much. In 5 to 8 years, you're going to be earning amazing salaries, right? The important thing is that you don't grow your fixed costs with your salary, right? Like if you earn 3,000, your fixed cost should be 2,000.
Yeah.
If you're at 10,000, you shouldn't go to 8,000 fixed costs because then you're in a big trap. Because one day you get fired, what do you do? Like, so at the end, many people do that. Like they start to earn money, they start to adjust their living to that salary, and suddenly you're fired, you have issues, you're in trouble, and then you're with a base of fixed costs that you cannot live with.
Yeah.
So it's important that you try not to live with the minimum, but always adjusting and making sure that you have enough buffer in case that you have trouble. And the rest, invest it, save it, do with it whatever you want, but don't live always at the maximum, right, of your capacity. That's very important.
All right. So the next question, now second to last, is about what habits, like healthy habits related to the financial topic, would you recommend for us to use to start developing now at a young age, so that they benefit us when we're like starting to earn money in a monthly basis?
Okay. So first thing is open an account, in the bank. I had accounts, but I mean, remember, I'm 20 years older than you, or a bit more. So I didn't have access, online access or anything. The account that I had, it was there. My parents put money, they invested and everything. So I wish that when I was your age, I had access to my account and understood exactly how much money I have, how much return it's bringing, and everything. So if I could, I would convince my parents to actually give me 50, 100 euros a month, so that I can start investing and actually looking at the things that I'm doing, how my returns I'm doing, and everything. Now, the other part of that is how do I build that habit of investing, right? And for that, my advice would be to understand the investments. The first thing you need to understand is macroeconomics, right? Because I can tell you that real estate brings you 5%, or that investing in real estate loans to people that are promoting whatever is at 10%, but you don't understand what are the dynamics, what happens with the market, because there is no real estate available, how is it impacting everything, or the same thing with the stock market, what is happening when Trump got elected, right? Why the stock market went up, why Tesla went up, like what is the market expecting? Is it expecting because the interest rates are decreasing, is because they're spending more, whatever. So that's the first thing you need to understand, and it helps a lot to read just the news, but the economic news. No, I typically every night read Expansión, not because I enjoy reading Expansión, but because that gives me a perspective to understand like what is happening in the world, right? Because for me it's very important that what happens with the interest rates, as we said, because that's going to increase consumption, what is happening with the savings rate of the families, all of those things you need to understand, because at the end that's what's moving also the profitability of whatever portfolio you have. So first of all, understand that. And second of all, in those same newspapers, when I read Expansión, they always say like, hey, what is the recommended share? Where should you invest? Read that, because it's written in a basic way, so that you understand why they're recommending buying Iberia, or why they're recommending buying Tesla, or why they're not recommending buying cryptocurrencies right now. And that gives you lots of insights, and you start to understand what are the dynamics behind of why should I buy this, why should I buy this, why with high interest rates I should be buying solid shares that are giving dividends, or with low interest rates I should go for shares that are more volatile because it discounts more the future cash flows. All of that is important to understand, otherwise you're just going to be guessing, right? So the two advices is get your own account, get access, start investing, not a lot of money, but small amounts, but start investing with using your brain, like trying to understand where to invest and how to invest. That's the only advice I can give you. So read a lot about that. Yeah?
So final question, we all Ethan and Goiko, we ask our parents to go here every weekend. And so
More you should come, more often you should come.
It's a business that has grown a lot since its creation. So the last question we have for you is, are there any things you would like to recommend, like financial problems which you can face in Goiko, which can also be applicable to the life of young people?
I mean, definitely. At the end, managing a company is no different from managing a government or managing your own P&L, right? Your own resources. So the things you would apply to your personal life is the same things you would apply to a business, right? I think there are a couple of examples, right? The first one is cash is king, right? So you need to make sure that you plan way in advance. When I plan a year, I need to understand how much I'm going to sell, and how much is going to translate in EBITDA, it's going to translate in cash, and how much I can invest. No? If I fail to plan that very accurately, I could run into a problem, right? Because You know, I could say like, hey, this is going to be my cash at the end of the year. This is how many restaurants I'm going to open. And then suddenly I open the restaurant, but I don't have the cash. What do you think will happen? I have a big problem, right? I need to go to the bank and ask for more money that they could give me or not. So it's very important that you plan very well everything you want to do, understanding how much is the bottom line and how much with that you can invest. So, you know, apply to your life. It's like you always need to have cash in your account, just in case. Also, you know, to search for opportunities. In case that you see like, hey, the stock market is dropping a lot, that's the time to go there and buy shares, buy a fund or whatever, because at the end it's going to pick up, right? And the other learning is in terms of leverage, right? Like, I think one of the, it's important you guys understand you shouldn't leverage a lot at your age, right? Like with those credit cards and everything, that's that thing that is so popular in US, like, you know, living off credit. I think it's important that you guys have, you know, good rules that you don't spend what you don't have, right? I think it's very similar in terms of managing a business. At the end, you can leverage a business, not as much as you want, but you can get debt. And the problem is when things are doing well, you can, you know, like get a lot of debt for a business, you know, as many times as 2, 3, 4 times a bit that. The problem is if things start to go wrong and south, how do you do to repay that debt, right? Because at the end, when you reach a ratio, let's say, of debt to EBITDA 4 times, but suddenly your EBITDA drops because sales are dropping or anything like that, and suddenly that ratio goes to 6 times debt to EBITDA, how do you do? So it's important that you manage really well your finances, your financials and everything in a company the same way as as your own financials. You cannot have like a huge debt in your personal finance, because at the end, you know, if you get fired, for example, how are you going to pay the mortgage, the loan for the car and everything, right? So it's important to plan very well a business, the same way it's important to plan how much is going to be your income, and always have a buffer just in case you know, something really bad happens. Yeah.
All right. I guess that problems Goiko faces, we can all apply them to.
I didn't say we face it. We could face it.
Yeah, we could face it. Goiko's a big enterprise, could face it, as you say.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, man, it could be really similar to our personal finances.
Yeah.
Whereas usually when we start making money, and I think it's great that our viewers and us know how to face them.
Yeah,
So thank you very much.
It's my pleasure, guys. I hope you guys learned something.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you very much for your podcast.
Thanks to you.
It was perfect.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. And don't forget to get your burger at Goiko.
Get the Kevin burger.
Once a week.
Exactly.